it's not registering, you know. And I think maybe it's then that in those moments that on the exams that you do, it's obvious that you fail to catch the gist of certain questions that come up on the exam. And although you might not believe it, but I spend a lot of time looking over the test results and how many people miss which questions. And there is a pattern. There is a pattern. I know for sure people study on their own and do better, do it because they grasp these things that don't get across in the class because they're reading material. But one of those things that is a problem is recognizing and understanding in terms of fertilization, that's what we're talking about now, of the zona pellucida and the granulosa. The granulosa is a term we use generally for a lot of things. Okay, so I want you to. This is the egg. Okay, this is right here. And this layer of cells is what we call the granulosa. And the membrane right below it is the pellucida. The pellucida means hairy. What we have here is a bunch of these sperm racing to the egg, and before they get there, something has to happen to the sperm. It has to be capacitated. And that capacitation happens where? Anybody know? Didn't think so. It happens in the vagina. It begins there, and as it finally makes it through the cervix, it's capacitated. There's a chemical change involved in capacitation. And they began to break away. And I said they. Break through this layer, the granulosa layer. Anybody remember how this happens?
They have some type of chemical on their heads.
There's a chemical, right, in the head. Now, too often there's this confusion about one lonely spermatozoid that fertilizes the egg, and that is true. That is true. But all of them come in capacitated, ready to emit these chemicals in their head. In the moment that they touch these cells right here, it causes them to release a chemical. Okay, and acrosomal enzymes. All right. So it's not just one sperm that does the whole job. They're competing still at this point, and they're releasing this chemical, this acrosomal chemical, and it burns away, literally burns away an area. And that's the product of a lot of sperm. Many. The most vigorous of that bunch that happens to burned away first is the one who continues to burn his way through the zona pellucida. Okay? Now it becomes a question of one God. Although there may be others on the other side of the egg doing the same thing. All competing, burning through the granulosa and then the zona pellucida. This is the zona pellucida here. Okay? And right down here, after you get through the zona pellucida, there's a membrane that has a bunch of receptors. These are sperm binding receptors. The sperm binding membrane with its receptive, with its receptors here. Whoever makes it first through here and into this sperm binding membrane is the winner. Okay? And what he does then is he binds to these sperm binding receptors. And in doing that, what he's going to do is eventually cause another chemical reaction. And what that does is destroy the receptors. And at the same time, release a chemical that begins to harden this membrane, this sperm binding membrane. Okay? So as a result, the zona pellucida hardens and the sperm receptors are clipped off, and that is what they call the slow lock to polyspermy. So it's not going to happen this time because most of the questions will be clinical, and I may throw some true and false in there. But the bulk of the exam will be lab in nature. And I haven't really made up my mind whether I'm going to include this plate or not. But I wanted to get that concept fixed. Okay. Here's a plate that you are responsible for. So all of that diatribe of mine just now happens typically right here, but not necessarily. It could happen between your down. You're responsible for everything on this plate. Okay? In the beginning, that there's open space all throughout here. What is that space? No? Yes? I don't know. Never heard it before. Okay. So, tell me about ectopic pregnancy.
That's when the fetus is developed outside
The
of.
fetus is developed outside. I think we need to do better than that.
Implantation.
An ectopic pregnancy is implantation anywhere other than the what?
The uterus.
The uterus. There is no physiological connection between the fimbria here and the egg. Now they are in contact, but the egg and the fimbria, they're awashed in secretions and things. Okay? But there's no capsule or ligaments or anything there there's no cellular connection between them. So that when ovulation happens, the egg theoretically could go down in here. That's happened before. Okay. What is endometriosis?
I don't want to say they're like cysts because they're not really like cysts, but it's just where development of I'm trying to like.
What does your book say it is? Hmm?
Is it an autoimmune?
An autoimmune disease. No, we have to do much better than that.
Okay.
What is endometriosis?
Inflammatory condition.
What does your book say endometriosis is? It's as simple as going back in the index and look at endometriosis, find out what page it's on. What does it say?
It says an inflammatory condition in which endometrial tissue occurs and grows typically in the pelvic cavity, characterized by abnormal dural and rectal movements and pelvic pain.
What kind of tissue is growing?
Endometrial.
Endometrial. Where is it growing? Where?
Pelvic
In the pelvic cavity. Somewhere other than where it's supposed to be. Ectopic pregnancy trying to occur in some place that it's not supposed to be. And endometriosis, the growth of endometrial cells outside of where it's supposed to be. I'm saying it for a reason, okay? Remember, endometriosis and ectopic pregnancy. What is the function? First of all, what is this structure called? corpus what? Luteum. And what does it do? It is where the egg is born, it's expelled. Hopefully it goes up into the tube. And then this corpus luteum turns into what?
It turns,
Yes.
That controls the uterus to, keep the pregnancy until they.
The corpus luteum sustains the pregnancy. It sustains the process of development until when?
Implantation.
Until the placenta finally takes over. Okay. We're in fallopian tube. Fertilization has been successful. It takes a certain amount of time. This fertilized egg begins to go through stages of development. And then it finally makes it to the uterus. About how long is that process? So thereabouts, okay? By the time it gets there, that egg complex, fertilized egg, is going to be called a blastocyst, okay? When it finally gets there. Now it's going to be called other things along the way, depending upon the stage of cellular development. But by the time it gets to the uterus, the fertilized egg is called a blastocyst. And that's the thing that implants in the wall of the uterus. Okay? All right. Here are three more terms that are often confused in exams. Trophoblast, syncytiotrophoblast, and cytotrophoblast. The trophoblast, the outer layer of cells of the blastocyst. Okay. Now, we've started this implantation process, okay? And the trophoblast now is going to convert into the cytotrophoblast. We just renamed it because the cells are beginning to change. This is still the egg, okay? But the cells that are in contact with this area right here, the cytotrophoblast, this is still trophoblast down here, but the cells that are in contact with the uterine wall go undergo a chemical change, and their cellular structure begins to change, and they turn into the cytotrophoblast. trophoblast. And what we do is have a proliferation of a thing called the syncytial trophoblast. Okay. You might see this. Now these things that I point out are things that you must study. If I include all of them, well, you're okay. But maybe I'll only include half of them. I don't know until I make up the exam. But this is the material that you must prepare for. Okay.